The story of the Aztec has been told many times about the incursion of the Spanish to that great empire. Many talk about the battle in Montezuma and Cortez and how he was able to take a lot of the treasure from the Aztec, but how he was pushed out of the city and forced to flee, how he was able to put together a new army made up of different native groups in the area, along with reinforced Spanish troops, and then come back against Montezuma's people. Montezuma had died, but prior to his death, he had made sure that the Spanish would not get all the treasure or their important religious items. The priests had been able to take much of the treasure and important items out of the country and hide them. The priests had been successful in removing many of the artifacts and important treasures from the area and hiding it successfully from the Spanish. When the Spanish came back and discovered the treasure was missing, they tried to follow the Aztec. They tortured many individuals. They tried to follow their trail, and yet they failed to find what the Aztec had done with their treasures and with their religious artifacts. Treasure hunters and historical writers have all forgotten that there are two important histories of the Aztec written by Aztecs themselves. The story of Diego Duran and Tezozomoc are two historical accounts that were written and have been translated. In one of these accounts, it talks about how the Aztec warriors and priests, the Aztec priests that were accompanied by the warriors, they bent down and performed their magic on the ground. For a number of years, a few individuals have been aware of a particular petroglyph that is found in notable areas from Mexico all the way up to Utah and Arizona, to the northern Arizona, southern Utah region. These unusual petroglyphs are always made on a flat surface looking up at the sky. Because of this, erosion has taken its toll. However, surprisingly, most of them still exist for us to be able to see today. These petroglyphs can't be called anything except navigational in nature. They come up in a line and then they branch off and go to various locations and seem to end. They always are pointing at a distant object or feature, land feature, and many of them are found around significant locations that are associated with certain features in history, such as the Freddy Crystal Treasure Cave, the Three Lakes location, and areas around the Arizona Strip, Utah, and the Grand Canyon area. The navigation glyphs show where to cross the Grand Canyon at various locations. And they also show the locations of the important civilizations, solstice sites, cities, and even treasure locations. But there is one very important item that none of these treasure writers, none of these researchers or scientists have ever mentioned or really paid any attention to. And that is probably the most notable petroglyph panel on the North American continent. This panel can be found right in the heartland of the Aztec nation once it left the area, once they left their homeland and Lake Copala. How do we know this is the heartland of the Aztec nation once they left Lake Copala? Because it is the epicenter for the Uto-Aztecan language groups that spread in all directions from this location. It is also the area where the species of corn, maize, squash, and other crops that the Aztec used come up and stop. The Havasupai, the Hualapai, and the Paiute all talk about being the keepers of the Aztecs' treasure. They are the watchers that still to this day watch over some of the Aztec treasure caves and locations. One interesting feature of this large petroglyph panel is, just like the Aztec key glyphs or navigation glyphs, it is found on a flat surface looking up at the sky. Also notably, many small key glyphs, many of these navigation glyphs, can be found on this panel, which indicates that the people that made this panel knew exactly what they meant and what they were for. Even more notably, on this panel, the same locations that many of these glyphs can be found are indicated on the map, which is this petroglyph panel. This petroglyph panel is a huge map of the area of the Grand Canyon and areas north, south, east, and west of this region. On this map, there are many solstice sites shown, many caves, volcanoes, the areas that you can safely cross over, the cliffs, the canyons, and the rivers. The Freddy Crystal Cave is marked. The three caves, the three lakes at three caves are shown on this map very distinctively. There are many notable features and figures on this map that tie it directly to the Aztec, including feathered headdresses, little warriors, and many of the emblems and signs that the Aztec used in their motifs. There's no doubt in my mind that this large map historically belongs to the Aztec people, and that it was left, or that it was left when they migrated to Mexico, or was created when they brought their treasure back and hid it. Many people are fascinated by the mysteries of the Grand Canyon and the potential of a Grand Canyon treasure cave. If there was a Grand Canyon treasure cave, you could bet the Aztec knew about it. And I do believe that they did, and that they left treasures of their own to add to the treasures and things that were possibly already there by another civilization. All the tribal people, all the native peoples that live in this area, the Hopi, the Navaho, the Hualapai, the Havasupai, all these people that live along the rim and region of the Grand Canyon have an emergent story. A story that talks about coming out from the ground, out from an underground city. After many years of research and dedicated work, I have come to the conclusion that the Aztec Empire and the area of the Lake Copala that the Aztec once lived was the ancient Lake Uinta that once covered the area of northeastern Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming. I believe that the Colorado Plateau uplift happened much more recently than scientists tell us. I believe it was the event of the Colorado Plateau uplift that drained Lake Copala and forced the Aztec to move from their homeland. Perhaps it was volcanic activity at Yellowstone, or the giant meteor hits that we can find, such as that meteor crater east of Flagstaff, that caused the fracturing of the earth and the chain reaction that caused this continental uplift in this region. We do know historically that that's the time when many volcanoes erupted. There was much turmoil and turbulence in this region. There were famines, there were droughts. No doubt there was a battle for food, for shelter. I believe this is the time when many of the Native Americans went underground into caves and to cliffs for protection from the volcanic activity, from the direct sun, from drought and from famine, from lack of rain. Whatever the cause, at this time it seems there was a great period where all the Native American groups were seeking shelter beneath the earth. There were the Ant people. There's the Zuni with their Simpapu, the Navajo people with their emergence from the underworld. Many of these groups and tribes, including the Aztec, told about coming out and emerging from beneath the earth and starting a new period of history, of life. I am convinced by my research and by some very important discoveries that I have located the emerging area of the Aztec, the underground location where the Aztec came out from their 7 caves and were able to begin their new life after these catastrophes and calamities had passed. I believe that this location was where they got some of their treasure that they eventually took to Mexico City. The similarities to these features are remarkable beyond belief. If you look at the shape of the feature in the Aztec motifs and compare that to Google Earth land features today, it's very remarkable, its resemblance. Columbus was a Knights Templar, and when he would convince the Queen of Spain to give him the money to come over on an expedition, it is my belief that he was looking for a great treasure, the 7 cities of Cibola, this underworld of the Aztec, where once great treasure had come from, these cities of gold. Columbus knew about the New World. He knew that it was here from previous expedition of the Templars and other nations. This information was kept secret. Without this information, Columbus would have never been able to convince the Queen of Spain to give him the money to make his expedition. It explains why the Spanish conquistadors spent so much time exploring in every direction from their landing points for the 7 cities of Cibola. They searched the Amazon. They searched all the way up into the area that today is Kansas. Cortez discovered with the Aztec the great wealth of those South American nations and tried to get from them where they had obtained their treasure. Miners went out into every direction, trying to look for mines and caves and things in places where gold and silver was found. They were successful in finding many of these things, but they never did find the 7 cities of Cibola, the cities of gold that were talked about by ancient peoples that had been to this continent long before Columbus. It is my belief that they came from a specific location, the very location where the Aztec took refuge when the outer world, the earth, was undergoing great calamity, earthquakes, volcanoes, and uplift of the land, when the water was draining south to the sea, and the Aztec and the other natives felt that the gods were mad at them, and they took shelter in the earth. Things that started the story of the Grand Canyon Treasure Cave was the story of G.E. Kincaid and S.A. Jordan, who were working for the Smithsonian. G.E. Kincaid took an expedition down the Colorado River and found an area that looked good for mining. He said he saw a brown stain on the canyon wall, which, as any good miner knows, is associated with iron. And as the Spanish have said, gold rides an iron horse. Where you find iron, you can find gold, silver, and other valuable minerals. And so it was natural for G.E. Kincaid to explore the area. He hiked up and found a cave that contained many items that were from a different civilization that he did not understand. Later, the Smithsonian has tried to say that this is a made-up story and that it is false. They said that G.E. Kincaid and S.A. Jordan were not real people. But in doing deep research, we have found that they were real people. Their names can be found in history, and they did work for the Smithsonian. There are documents and records that show this. There are other newspaper articles that talk about these 2 individuals. You can also find their information in genealogical research records. They were real people that were born and died. The Smithsonian's sole purpose for its creation was to control the narrative of science and history. If you can control the narrative of science and history and information, then you can control the people, the wealth, and you have the ability to write history the way you want it to be written. The Smithsonian has been guilty of hiding and misleading people on many topics and many things. Any advanced civilization that they find that's out of context that is out of context from their narrative, they gather that information and that evidence and then they bury it. The Smithsonian was started by the elite, by the bankers, by the scientists, by the lawyers, by those that are in power in society and that want to keep power. There's this very same group that has taxed global warming, lied to us about, and subjugated the Native American people in their histories. They've hidden evidence of the giants and many significant artifacts that have been found that would rewrite and change history.